Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network. And joining me to talk Rockets is co-host of the Bradeaux and Will Show. It's the Bradeaux half. Great to have you on. Finally, we've been talking over the years, but I've never had a chance to talk to you. And I don't even think I've ever asked you, what is the origin of Bradeaux? Is that your given name?
Yeah, so for one, thank you for having me on the show. It's been good talking to you over the years, of course, in the Rockets community and all that stuff. You do a great job. The Bradeaux origin, my actual name is Brad. My family is Creole. So just one of my uncles, he just nicknamed me Bradeaux, and it just stuck. And so people have been calling me that since I was a kid.
That's cool. That's cool. Man, we got a ton to talk about. One Rocket that's bringing me so much joy on a night-to-night basis, of course, Amen Thompson. And I want to start calling him artificial intelligence. I mean, AI would be the perfect nickname if Iverson didn't exist, because this is just not a second-year leap. He's like picked stuff up and game to game. It's like artificial intelligence. You know, he just, okay, I can learn this. Now I do this, whatever. And I'll tell you what I'm seeing, and you can add on to this, but the jumper's becoming automatic from about 14 feet and in. He's got legit soft touch for somebody with almost no jumper just a year ago. All of a sudden, his footwork around the basket is Kevin McHale. Out of nowhere, the drive and kick game is progressing at light speed, 6.3 assists in his last 12 games. Am I missing anything? Anything else that he's added that I forgot?
Yeah, everything looks amazing right now. And to start with the jump shot, last year, I look at the mid-range and the corner threes. He's got an uptick on corner threes this year. He's shooting 37% on those right now, which is way up there. He shot 11% on them last year on only like 18 attempts, and now he's taking them at a higher volume. The mid-range shot, as you mentioned, around 14 foot, it looks automatic. Last year, he was around like 28, 29%. This year, it's at 41%. And last game against the Spurs, I want to say he hit all three of his jump shots that he took. The handle, the footwork. I was listening to Jackson Gatlin's podcast, Locked on Rockets. He was saying it looks like he's been in the gym with Akeem, and it does. He's looked amazing in all facets of the game. We're just literally missing a consistent above the break 3-point shot. He took one yesterday. He did airball it. So that's going to come eventually, hopefully. But, I mean, outside of that handle gets really tight, like I think it will in the future, he's going to be unstoppable. I really think he's going to be unstoppable. But I think that handle will come soon.
Yeah, you mentioned Akeem. Until I see the dream shake, I'm not buying Akeem quite yet, but I would never put it past him to add the dream shake. And, Şengün's an all-star. Jalen leads the team in scoring, but I threw out an X poll asking who's the best Rockets player today. They said Amen. He edged out Şengün 49% to 40%. I noticed that after I posted that, just by coincidence, I guess you posted, you don't like talking about who the Rockets' best player is. Is that right? Or do you think Amen's the best player? You know, this is not about stands or which player that you like the most, but, who is the Rockets' best player right now?
It's a good question. It's not that I don't dislike it. Those stand wars in the community, I won't even get into. But best player on a season sample, I'll tell you this right now. If Amen played the whole year, I think he would have been an all-star. That's how good he's been this season, just on defense, offense, everything. I would say he's the best player on the team. I mean, he's a complete player on both sides. Şengün's been amazing. I mean, since he's been in Houston. Efficiency is down right now, of course. And I'll give him his props. He's improved defensively. But, like, as a whole, Amen's put together a better season. So I think Amen's been better. But, I mean, I love LP, of course.
The thing when we drafted him, I think a lot of us thought maybe he's a point guard of the future. Then you wondered the first year and a half. But all of those little things that he's adding, it's getting closer. And really the only thing that we don't know yet, or we don't see maybe yet, is, how he's controlling the offense, how he's setting things up. Obviously, Fred's on a whole another level than he is. But, how quickly do you think he can get there to be an actual point guard?
That's a great question. I will say this about the Spurs game yesterday. He looked very comfortable. And I know the Spurs aren't the best team right now without Wembanyama, but he looked really comfortable running those point guard reps. I don't know how long it will take. I'll give him 2 years max. Next year, I'm sure it'll look a lot closer. But you can look from when he started against the Lakers. That's when he came back from the 2-game suspension. He's averaging 5.3 assists since then. I think he can get there quickly. Again, it's just I feel like if you can get that above the break 3-point shot down, again, because if you're a point guard and defenses are just sagging that much, it kind of does hurt you in the slightest. So once that 3 ball gets a little bit there, I think it's going to help him as a point guard too. So I would give him 26, 27 season. That's when I would say he'll be locked in there.
Yeah, I'm not even worried about the 3-point shot, because if he can, the way his handle's coming along, and if he can get that to the point where guys are sagging off of him and he's doing these weird Euros that he's doing right now, and the footwork you get in the lane, and, pretty soon he's going to require help. I think he already requires help. Once you require the help, and then guys sag and you can find the guys, which he's starting to do, obviously, then, I think he can be there. I also know that fans, maybe the Rockets coaching staff, believe it's great that, he's showing his toughness, but fans celebrated him throwing down Tyler Hero, and maybe we're okay with the hard Giannis foul. But number one, he's just too valuable now to lose during a game or lose because of a suspension. Don't know what you think, Bradeaux, but I don't want him getting this reputation with the refs and the league either, or they're going to side on tossing him or suspending him much more easily than you would want for a guy that we consider maybe the best player down the road, or even now.
I 100% agree. I do like that Ime Udoka has instilled toughness into this young team. Don't get punked and foul hard, but you have to be smart. Like the foul on Giannis, he literally put him in a chokehold pretty much and grabbed him on the face. All unintentional, of course. That's why he didn't get suspended. He just has to be more careful. He is more valuable to the team now than ever. It's very important that he's on the floor. He's averaging, again, since he began starting in early January, he's averaging 37.8 minutes per game, which is like top 3 in the league in that span. So they need him on the court. They can't have him fouling out or committing fouls like that that'll get him ejected. So they definitely need him in. Just be careful. If you're going to foul hard, just don't put him in a chokehold.
Yeah, I just remember after the Tyler Hero game, he got suspended for the Boston game, and you just felt like, wow, they got no chance without Amen. That's what he meant, against a Boston team that has all the big wings that you needed him. And of course, when they did have Amen, guess what happened against the Celtics? He gets the game-winning shot, and he goes crazy.
Yeah, that was literally his best game of his career too. So they need him out there. They can't afford that.
I want to hit on Jabari's return, rethinking the Devin Booker trade a little bit and the playoff matchups. But before we roll on, just want to remind our listeners about Underdog Fantasy, because you're going to have a blast playing Underdog with their unique approach to fantasy sports and simple pick'em style format. You can select players you know are going to outperform expectations without the traditional daily fantasy drawbacks. And if you're a fan of drafting your own guys, which many fantasy owners feel is the best part, Underdog has simple drafts where you select a team and compete for serious cash. You'll find all the major leagues and college sports on Underdog. Of course, the NBA right now is the perfect time to go and check out all the fantasy and the NBA. It's user-friendly as well, making it easy and fun to play. And why not start now by clicking the link you see in our episode description using the promo code HOU. HOU is the promo code. If you do come aboard, you get a free pick and up to $1,000 bonus cash. Not a bad deal. So go check out Underdog and download their app to your favorite mobile device. All right, Bradeaux, in his 4 games since returning, Jabari Smith is 14 for 42 from the field. He's also averaging 2.5 turnovers, which is over twice his season average. And I just got to ask you, because I'm noticing dribbling issues. Are we sure with the shooting and the dribbling issues that the wrist is still not affecting his game?
That's a great question. I pulled up the stats right before I came on the show too. He's shooting with 26% from 3. Before getting injured, he was shooting 42% in his last 20 games. So him coming back, he had that hot first game. Since then, it's been a downhill slope. I want to say he's okay. He's perfectly fine because he played 38 minutes in that first game back. He does just go through a ton of slumps, and I have to remind myself that this kid is still 21 years old. I'm not making it an excuse. He just has those inconsistencies that, we wish would eventually go away with a lot of these young Rockets players. I do think he's okay, though. I don't think there's any issue with his hand. He's just going through one of those slumps again, which I hope ends very soon.
Yeah, his handle's not the greatest, but for me, a couple of times I just thought, man, he just looks uncomfortable, and he just dribbled, just kind of lost it. It wasn't stolen, I felt like a couple of times. He flat out lost it without any sort of pressure. And that's, I guess, where I'm concerned.
I'll say this. Yeah. I forgot to speak on the handle. He has been dropping a lot of passes and he's missing some rebounds too. So that is a good point. I don't know what's going on there. Watching him the past few seasons, I can't think of just times where he's been missing passes. He doesn't seem like a guy that just has butterfingers. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's been missing a lot of passes lately. So, I mean, maybe there's something bothering him there, but from what I've heard, I'm cool with a lot of his friends, and I talk to them all the time. They said he's perfectly fine.
That sounds good. Sounds good. The assumption by the fan base and NBA analyst is if Devin Booker is on the trading block, the Rockets go all out for him this summer. But Bradeaux, let's play this game for a second. Booker's contract moving forward, $53 million next year, then 57, 61, his third and final year. And I'm pretty sure either Jalen or Fred needs to be in this deal to match salaries over the summer. You know, either you're going to keep Fred with that same last year of his contract and then use that to move in the deal, or Jalen's got to be a part of it. Booker's an upgrade over Jalen at this moment, but the two are closer than we think. It's closing in. I mean, Booker's still, I think, a little bit better than Jalen defensively. I think Booker is definitely a better shot creator than Jalen is, but the shooting is starting to narrow the gap, and it's pretty darn close, especially this year. Plus, there's more than a $20 million difference over the next two seasons between Jalen and Booker. So, like, is it worth the $20 million difference? If Fred's in the deal by year 3, you could have big cap issues because Jalen can opt out at year 3, ask for that full max. Amen and Şengün will be on a rookie max at that point, and Booker's making $61 million. So my question is, what do you do? Are you still in on trying to get Booker, and how do you do it? And how do you figure out the puzzle pieces here?
I almost ask myself this question every single day because that Suns team, again, it's a lost cause, 11 seed. It's pretty much known KD's going to be traded, and now Devin Booker is that left. You know, he's a guy that's left there, and they might trade him too. So I think, like, okay, if the Rockets' main guy is going to be Devin Booker, who are they getting rid of? Ideally, you know, when we used to think about this, it was probably a Jalen for Devin Booker swap. You know, Jalen, he hasn't been playing awful this season. He looks like a guy you could, okay, let's see what he does to finish the year. Let's see how he looks in the playoffs. So I still want to assess that. But then is it like, if you keep Jalen, and I'll ask you this question too, do you like a Devin Booker, Jalen Green backcourt pairing? That's something I'm curious if the Rockets even want to do.
That's where it gets interesting because we were just talking about Amen, and I'll connect the Amen thing because Amen, if he's ready to be the point guard, because in that scenario, Fred's going out and we're taking away Udoka's blankie. I don't know if he's going to be, you know, real happy about sending Fred out in a deal, although Booker, of course, an upgrade, one of the top 20, 25 players in the NBA. However, you know, Amen, where the development is, does he feel comfortable enough? And if he does, Amen's almost like the point forward in that situation. You have Jalen and Booker as the guards. Amen's the point forward. And then, you know, it's Şengün and whoever is in that fifth spot. I'm of the opinion that you make a deal like that if Fred's involved, because talent matters in the NBA. You need buckets at the end of games. You know, we love Fred, but obviously Devin Booker's better at getting the buckets at the end of games, and you have him and Jalen and Şengün. Somebody's going to, you know, should be able to get some single coverage in that situation. The other part about all of this is, you know, the third year. Now I brought up the third year. I just don't care beyond 2 years in the NBA. I don't even know if I care beyond a year. I mean, it depends on the draft capital that you're giving up, obviously, because, you know, you give up all that draft capital for 2 years, but at the same point, hey, let's see where we are in 2 years. Then you reassess. One of those guys you would think you could ship out and get some of the picks back or get some of that capital back, but you would have a great window for 2 years with a lot of guys making less money than they would if they were hitting that full, you know, in that full max market, like Şengün and Jalen and some of those other guys. So, you know, if it's me, I'm like, yeah, I got to go all in, because just talent's talent in the NBA, and it matters once you get down to the final 8, final 4 teams.
I agree with that. I want to ask you, if it's Devin Booker that's not available, what do you think about Kevin Durant? I know he's 37 going into next season. I think the fit is better. And I think he'll be fine by age for 39, 40. And again, it's not ideal because it's not a building block for the future like a Devin Booker would be. I do like the basketball fit a lot, though.
My problem with Kevin Durant is, and you said it, I mean, well, look, he's got 1 year left after this. How much are you going to give up for a guy 1 year with 1 year left? Because then you got to figure out, okay, now I re-sign him for how long, for how much, and the other thing about Kevin Durant is, he's going to be 37 here, and he's an old 37 in that a lot of mileage in playoffs. He's had the lower body injuries over and over again. That's a concern. He misses, a pretty good amount of games year to year. The other part about Kevin Durant is, man, I know everybody loves Kevin Durant, the player, but Kevin Durant, the teammate, has been kind of hot garbage. Like it totally blew up in Brooklyn, and Kevin Durant was not helping fixing the chemistry over there at all. The chemistry in Phoenix has been terrible. His body language, I mean, he's the guy that should be setting the tone at his age. This is an elite Hall of Famer. You got to be the leader in this thing. And, there's stuff where I hear about how he's dealing with a coach that, was a NBA, he won a championship just a few years ago. This is a team that's got Booker, and I get it. Some other guys are not maybe good enough around that, but the culture that he's had over the last few years isn't good. Couldn't get along with, guys in Golden State. I understand Draymond, I get it, but couldn't get along in Golden State, couldn't get along with anybody in Brooklyn, couldn't get along with anybody in Phoenix. And now you're bringing him in with all these young guys that are trying to build something here. I don't like what I see with Kevin Durant and where his career is going and where his physical stuff is going. And Father Time's undefeated. So I'm not a big fan of that unless you get him super, super, super cheap.
I hear that. Yeah, you definitely don't want to give up a lot for an old player like that. Again, Hall of Famer, elite, all that good stuff. I do like the basketball fit. I know they got the Udoka ties. I'm curious to see if they go in that direction if Booker is not available. I do know it may be an option. But, I mean, to your original point with Devin Booker, I do agree. If it's on the table, you go for it if it's a Fred VanVleet swap. So we'll see what they end up doing. I'm not interested again for the Devin Booker, Jalen Green swap at this current moment. I do want to see how he finishes the year. He usually has an uptick in March and April. It looks like it's kind of starting right now, so I'm excited for that. But I'm more so interested to see how he looks in the playoffs. That's going to be most important. And I think we're going to find out a lot about this Rockets team in the playoffs. And Stone's going to figure out what he wants to do with this team after the playoffs. So, yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting question, but I just want to see if Booker even becomes available.
Yeah, I'm wondering how quickly Ishbia is willing to throw in the whole towel, because Booker's never acted like he's ready to get out of there. He's never demanded anything. He's not whined about it. So that's where it gets real interesting. Is that going to happen by this summer? And maybe if you can send word through Rockets people to his agent, like, hey, would you be interested in coming over here? Maybe he would say, okay, for that, I would be willing to get out. But that's an interesting situation to sort of keep track of. Also, we got to keep track of playoffs. Hard to believe, 23 games left in the regular season. The Rockets are nearly even with the Lakers at the 4-5 spot. The Clippers have the 6th seed. They're 4.5 games back, but the Rockets own the tiebreaker. So it's likely, I'm going to say, Bradeaux, that we're looking at between a 2 and a 5 seed. If I'm going to Vegas, I'm betting they're going to be 2 to 5. Are there any teams that you just don't want to see in the first round of everybody, obviously, except the Thunder, who we're not going to see in the first round?
I don't mind seeing any team in the first round. Who I think would give them a tough matchup, of course, Golden State, but I don't think they'll see Golden State just based on how the standings look. I mean, if they jump to 2, if the Rockets jump to 2, and they could jump to 2, they may see Golden State if they win the play-in. But I don't think that would go well. But
Golden State could still jump to 6, and if the Rockets are at 3.
That's true. That's true, too. That is true, because they've been winning. And it is actually really close in that 6 to 10 range. That's a good point. So if they're 2 or 3 and they see Golden State, it's probably not looking pretty. But again, if the Rockets see Golden State and they lose in the first round, then we find out a lot about this team. They're just not ready, and moves need to be made. I was telling this on a different podcast. If they lose in the first round and it's ugly, good. I mean, we find out things we need to know about this team and the moves that need to be made. But outside of Golden State, they see Minnesota. I'm not worried about Minnesota. It'll be tough experience-wise. I mean, any team like the Lakers, it looks like we may play them in the first round. Experience-wise, it's not looking pretty playing LeBron and Luka, but I mean, as a basketball team, I think the Rockets have a better constructed overall team. They have no bigs. I like the matchup against the Lakers, even though, again, experience probably takes the Lakers over the top. But that's going to be the Rockets' main issue come playoff time. That half-court offense, which we won't get into, and just experience.
in recent years, I feel like AD's given the Rockets more problems than LeBron when you face the Lakers. So
Yeah,
actually the fact that the Lakers don't have AD and the Rockets have guys that they can throw at Luka, as great as he is, and guys that they can throw at LeBron and the wings and that sort of thing. I just feel like, yeah, that helps a little bit in that sort of matchup. But yeah, it's not like you're just like, oh, you can beat them. It just, you feel, I feel better about facing them than Golden State, just because the Rockets just seem to, crumble against Golden State no matter what's going on.
agree.
Except for that one that they had to fight. I mean, I've never seen them fight tooth and nail harder in that tournament just to, finally beat them. And it's like, okay, we'd have to do that 4 times in 7 games. That's
Right.
gonna be tough.
Yeah, and to bring up AD, the Mavericks, if they're fully healthy, I think that's a team. It's actually a really good team this year, at least, if they make the playoffs healthy. They look good in that single game they had against Houston. And we don't match up with a team like that, to be honest. So I would say Dallas and Golden State. Those would be my 2 answers for that.
Yeah, the one thing that I will say that the Mavericks lost in Luka is, I'm wondering what they can do in the fourth quarter. Because if you lock up Kyrie, they don't have the fourth quarter go to like the guy that I'm scared at. And the Rockets, the fourth quarter scoring obviously is an issue, but I think the Mavericks are going to have some issues in the fourth quarter as well, because you can lock up Kyrie a little bit.
I agree. And again, I think that's one of the worst trades of all time, if not the worst one. But if you can contain Kyrie, and we saw it at the end of that game, the Rockets started locking him down and went double big. It looked good. There's ways to stop that Dallas team. They just have a lot of size. I think they'll be really good defensively. And again, AD, even though he's hurt from time to time, he looks like a top 10, 15 player in the league right now, even when he's healthy. So it'll be tough. Sengun's going to have to muscle up and play him very well. But we'll see. I'm excited to see who they match up with. To your point, I want to say they'll jump to 2 or 3, especially with Fred coming back healthy. I don't expect them to fall to 5, even though, of course, it's still a possibility. I do expect them to jump into that 2-3 range.
Yeah, use the old head. I mean, that's the thing with the Rockets. The only thing I really worry about them these last many games is like, yeah, this IQ thing is a concern. And speaking of that, there was a narrative before the season that Cam Whitmore and Reed Shepherd couldn't get real playing time. I never bought into that because injuries always happen, and at least 12 to 15 minutes were realistic most nights, which is perfectly acceptable for 20-year-olds to develop. Now, they had golden opportunities. Minutes were available. The thing is, Jay Sean and Jeff Green, they've been saviors recently, and sadly, Bradeaux, and I'm going to focus in on Cam Whitmore's total lack of professionalism in garbage time against the Spurs pretty much epitomizes a guy who's blown his shots in the last few months. People can point to his age, but he's now in his 3rd year of this, going back to Villanova, where there's been issues, coaching issues, team issues, all of that sort of thing. And if vets like Uncle Jeff, Fred, or Steven Adams can't get in his ear, this kid's in trouble.
Yeah. Again, I look at what Cam did, not even just yesterday, just since he came back. I want to say it was middle of December. He was playing solid ball for a while and just fell out their rotation. Again, with Ime Udoka, it's always been IQ, defensive rotations, off-ball defense, things of that nature. And he's supposed to come in and just be that guy who's supposed to be a spark, shooting the ball, and he's just inefficient. And outside of that, in the defensive rotations, he gets lost. I know he has the character concerns. But yeah, I'll speak on what he did yesterday. We go on stream and watch every single Rockets game. Cam comes in, we're okay, we'll put the over-under on how many shots he'll take. We put it at like 5. He didn't take a single shot. And it did shock me because I kind of zoned in on him, and he did look disinterested out there. When it comes to Cam Whitmore, I think he has all the talent in the world. I want to see him ideally get a shot in the playoffs. It's just probably not going to happen because he has to earn that. I want him to earn it because if he's earned it, that means he's doing his role correctly. And I think he could be a valuable part of this Rockets team if he's playing the right way. It's probably too far gone at this point of the season. Udoka's zoning in on these vets. He's playing guys like Jason Tate over him, who has more IQ, better defensively. And Cam is way more talented than Jason Tate, right? But Jason Tate is playing more the right way, playing more of Udoka style. Same with guys like Uncle Jeff, who's come in the last 3 games averaging 10 points, shooting like 42% from 3 on 4 attempts. He's going to play a guy like Uncle Jeff. And even in like, who are the guys he's been playing? Yeah, like you mentioned, Jason Tate, like I said. So I don't know. With Cam, it's looking like he's probably the first guy gone in the trade piece. I do like the guy. I hope he works out in Houston. It's just not looking likely at all. But yeah, he's got to earn those minutes back, and he's not going to do it by soaking in garbage time and looking disinterested, like you mentioned.
Yeah, Jackson talked about on his show that, look, Cam could have even be getting these minutes from Aaron Holiday. Aaron Holiday is not the ball handler when he's out there. So, I mean, there's all sorts of places where he could be getting minutes right now. This has to do with you, Cam. This does not have to do with, there not being minutes available, or it's hard to get minutes. And the other thing is, you talk about his ability physically. I talked about it a little bit with one of my former guests. He's Anthony Edwards physically, but skill-wise, talent is also skill. He's not the best shooter. He shoots a lot. He's streaky, but when you look at the numbers, when it's all said and done, it's not good. He does not like to take catch and shoot. In the NBA, it's really hard to live off of dribbling into threes all the time. It's really hard to live off of mid-range jump shots unless you're SGA. It's really hard to live off of going into the paint and your plan is just, I'm going to try to jump over three guys and dunk the ball every time. At some point, he's got to figure out the nuances of the game, an easier way to score points offensively. So we could talk about the defensive stuff and the missed assignments and all that sort of stuff, but it's a complete package with him. And, this is something that you want to see development. It's funny because you look over and here's Amen, and he's as talented as can be. And every game he's showing you something new. And Cam, it's the same stuff and it's not working.
Yeah, and this is stuff I talk about with Will on my show all the time. Ideally, if you want to send a guy like Cam down to the G League to work on his game and come back with something new, it is really the same thing with him. His play style hasn't changed since he's gotten to Houston. He is just that same guy. He's going to take those off the dribble threes or off the dribble deep mid-range shots, or he's going to have a line drive to the rim. Still the same. I mean, I've seen slight improvements with the tunnel vision. I'm not saying it's not crazy, but I mean, he's the same player for the most part. Again, he's only 20 years old, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. He could be a star one day, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. Just right now, not a winning basketball player at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the rotation going forward. I mean, he might go back to the G League. I don't know. Again, the goal is work on your game, improve and bring that to the team. And again, it's kind of the same old stuff that we see with him.
And the attitude's got to get better, of course. And what do you listeners think, by the way? Get in the YouTube comments. If you're a new fan of the show, subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. That's how you can support all of our content. One last question for you, Bradeaux. If you could go back in a time machine and see any Rockets game in history in person, which game would you see?
Now, I wasn't around for the championship days, so I'd have to go to Game 4, 1995 against the Orlando Magic. They won it at the Summit. My dad was at the game, so I wish I could be there. I heard it was a great time, so I wish I could be there for that one.
Great pick. I was wondering which way you would go because I feel like there's a couple of them from the championship years that you could go to. A couple last thoughts before we go. As everybody knows by now, we lost an all-time legend today. Gene Hackman died. If you ask me, Bradeaux, what's the best basketball movie ever made? The only answer for me is Hoosiers. You agree on that?
Yeah, y'all are probably gonna get him. I've never seen that movie.
You have not seen Hoosiers?
I don't think was Gene in that movie?
Oh, he was the coach. Yeah, he was the coach of. It's a true story. Since you haven't seen it, true story of the Milan basketball team, the small town school that went and knocked off the big boys at the Indiana State Championship. It's like the classic Cinderella story. Hackman is just unbelievable. He's just about in every scene of the movie pretty much. And it's a quick story. According to director David Anspaugh, Hackman did not believe in the movie to the point where he told Dennis Hopper during the movie, quote, "I hope you've invested well because we'll never work again after this film." He later admitted to Anspaugh he gets the most reaction from any movie he's ever done from the fans of Hoosiers. And, it's just if you haven't seen it, it's a great film. I might be on Prime right now, but I'm sure you can find it on streaming. It's definitely worth a look. But is there a basketball movie that you love?
I would say Glory Road would be in my top two. Like the serious basketball movie, I would say that. Coach Carter. As a kid, I always loved Like Mike, but serious basketball movie, I would say Glory Road. That was a really good Cinderella story as well.
We had on somebody in Glow. We've had him on many, many times. He's a friend of the show and a friend of mine, Greg Lucas, the old Astros and Rockets reporter did a lot of the sideline stuff for the Rockets games. You might remember him from Fox Sports Houston days. So yeah, Greg, great guy. And he got to do a little play-by-play in that movie, which was really neat. So next time you watch Glory Road, look for Greg in that.
Will do.
He's at Bradeaux NBA. It's the Bradeaux and Will Show on YouTube. Anything else you want to plug?
If you guys want to watch Rockets games and our playback, it's live streaming. It's like Eli Manning, Manning cast on ESPN. It's like that, but watching Rockets games. If y'all want to tune in there in the Houston live room, feel free to. Outside of that, again, I just want to thank Robert for having me on the show. I had a great time. Always love talking Rockets hoops. So anytime you want to have me on, let me know.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for doing this. Appreciate the time, man.
Of course. Yep.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.